Cancel Netflix, make coffee at home, cook at home, check your direct debits. You hear this everywhere when you tell someone money is a bit tight. If you're paying for something you don't need, then cancel it. But there is a point where cost of living advice stops being budgeting and starts becoming a real problem. The thing you hear everywhere is to keep cutting the parts of life you can control, so you can keep paying for the parts you can't. At some point, you're not fixing the cost of living just by cancelling subscriptions. You're actually just shrinking your life because it's your only choice. Let's look at this in a different way. Average UK private rent is now £44 a month higher than a year ago. The current energy price cap is around £18 a month higher than the previous cap on the typical annual figure. Average Band D council tax in England is up another £9 a month. Average water bills add roughly another £3. For someone living in England exposed to all four of those increases, that is about £74 a month of extra essential cost. You can't run from this one. The cheapest Netflix plan is $5.99, which nobody has. We all have the more expensive plans. You would need to cancel the equivalent of more than 12 of them to offset that pile of increases. Not every household pays those exact averages, but that's not the point. The point is the proportion. A few subscriptions can waste money, but these subscriptions didn't make rent, energy, council tax, and water more expensive. These parts of a household's expenses are unavoidable. It's basically two different problems being mixed together. A household budget problem is about choices. You can stop buying something. You can switch provider. You can cancel a service. It leads to spending less. But a cost of living problem is about what happens to the price of the things you need in your life. It's not about choices anymore. If your rent rises and you cancel Netflix to cover it, your spreadsheet balances again. But your rent has not become cheaper. You're consuming less of something else through sacrifice and trade-offs. The next increase removes the takeaway, then the gym, then the weekend out, then the amount you save each month, then the budget balances all the way down until it can't anymore. The pressure hasn't been relieved, you've just been forced to absorb the change. The cost of living issue hasn't been tackled. Sometimes the argument jumps straight to corporate greed. It's easy to blame those who are charging you after all. And it's true in most cases. British Gas residential energy supply made $163 million of adjusted operating profit in 2025, which it says it must have to keep a healthy profit threshold. Sainsbury's made more than £1 billion of retail operating profit. The companies giving us the essentials are still maintaining cash-driven profit numbers, whilst the average person has to cut to just survive. But the profit on its own doesn't prove price gouging, and not every essential company has some giant margin waiting to be handed back to customers, because it actually doesn't. That matters, because if the argument is just companies are greedy, it is easy to dismiss. Most of them can be, but equally, they're also facing pressures. The main question is, how does the system allocate this during a cost of living crisis equally and fairly? Because right now, it really isn't working. Look at water. Those are heavily regulated monopoly businesses. You can't shop around for a different water network because you dislike the price. You just get given the one who owns the supply in your area. The regulator's explanation on how water bills work includes a bunch of financial jargon. But it's basically the funding needed to balance the financials for the investors. The funding is what you're paying. Right now, those bills in your letter are saying it's a necessary rise to help fund a $104 billion investment program through 2030. Now that's perfectly legitimate. Infrastructure has to be financed. Investors want returns. Networks need replacing. But it shows something important, that households pay for an essential service without choice. It is the result of rules about investment, allowed returns, performance, financing, and how much of that cost is recovered through bills. The households can't decide how to manage the water companies at all, so the water companies can get greedy, get into all sorts of mess and demand finances that come out of a normal person's bill to fund everything. It's a game between the regulator and the water companies. The average person just suffers the consequences from whoever plays the game better. Those actions deserve more scrutiny than whether somebody still has Netflix. Energy makes the same point from a different direction. Shell reported $18.5 billion of adjusted earnings last year and distributed $22.4 billion to shareholders. They had a lot of spare cash to return to shareholders, while the average person is struggling for the essentials. It shows why just use less is such an incomplete way to talk about an energy shock. Abnormally large returns can exist elsewhere in the economy, while the household response is still talking about what you can personally cut. The serious questions are about the essential markets themselves. We should be looking at how price shocks are passed through, how much competition exists, what returns are allowed, how investment is funded, what gets taxed, and how consumers should be protected. They should be looked at together to make sure the consumers are supported fairly, instead of just getting told you must absorb it somehow. Again, those are harder questions than just cancelling Netflix. They are the questions that can significantly change the cost of living. I've said a lot on companies, but let's not forget that personal responsibility also still matters, and it's one that the government is coming to try and help with. It can be hard when corporations make it hard for you to cancel a simple subscription. That's unfair. That's something the government are stepping in to try and fix. I'm all for it. But if you equally have 3 subscriptions you barely use, it's your responsibility to cancel them when you can. It was also your responsibility to read the terms when you purchased it. The world is becoming closer to having subscription-based economics now, because it's easier to generate predictable revenue. Corporations love it. But as this type of business model increases, it's only right that the government regulates and controls it better for the people. The key words are regulate and control, and not decide for the people. At the end of the day, it's still down to you how you decide to manage your budget responsibly. But saying that cancelling your subscriptions will help people with their cost of living simply isn't a complete statement. If cancelling a subscription suddenly makes your budget work again, then the subscription may not have been the problem. The system built to help the hardworking people was. The last bit of enjoyment you can afford to cut before you're basically just surviving isn't something that people who have worked so hard in this economy deserve to lose.